It's a real privilege to be here, brothers and sisters of the Sai family, trustees, leadership, the directors of the institution. I would not be standing here but for the grace of Bhagwan Baba. I was very blessed at the age of 14 to come for the summer course in Vrindavan. And as Swami would say, these Delhi boys have monkey minds. And he tamed that monkey mind and made it something that I'm so, so grateful. I don't think I can repay that debt for many, many lifetimes. So I'm just very, very grateful to him. And I think we had a conference in 2005 on healthcare, and we said, Matra Deva Bhava, Pitru Deva Bhava, Acharya Deva Bhava. There are many acharyas here. But we also said patient Deva Bhava. And I think that has been the theme of this meeting, that we should, I think Lord Krishna said in the Gita, if you see me in all beings and see all beings in me, you are very dear to me. I'm also very grateful to my mom who brought me to Baba. So there's a doha by Kabir, Guru Gobind do khade kake lago paye, Balihari Guru aap ki jin Gobind diyo dikhai. So she brought me to the lotus feet, and I came here in 1973. So I'm very, very indebted to that, and I'm indebted to my mom for bringing me here. So I think it's always great to talk about history. I think when we talk about medicine, you must know our history, because history, it strengthens us and tells us where our roots come from in medicine. And I think all Indian medicine really starts with Lord Shiva cutting off the head of Ganesh, because that's a neurosurgical procedure. And he enlightens us with that and teaches us that great surgical outcomes can come that way. And I think even in the Greeks, if you look at Zeus, Zeus had a bad headache, and Hephaestus comes and cracks open his skull, and Athena comes out. And a lot of people compare Athena to Lakshmi. I gave an oration once comparing the two of them, so I think that's an important thing. But I think as we look at the marvels of the temples of healing here, let us not forget that 100 years ago, if you went into a hospital in 1912, you had a 50% chance of getting out of that hospital alive. So we've come a long way since then, and we need to be very, very grateful of that. Now, I picked this topic of medical punditry because we get ahankaram in medicine, we get arrogant. You said, oh, I've done thousands of these, I've published this, I've done that. And I think we need to temper that punditry. And punditry became a big issue because it's sort of this overconfidence and this generalization. And I think physicians and medical professions have this sense of toxic doubtlessness sometimes. I'm right, this is the only way to do it, there's no other way to do it. And that's an important thing to remember, that punditry can be dangerous. And I wanted to give you some historical examples of that. In the Roman era, gladiator blood was supposed to cure epilepsy. And for hundreds of years, people would drink this blood to cure epilepsy. Now, this is a form of punditry that's dangerous, and we know it doesn't work. Now, we know bloodletting was a big thing in the Middle Ages, in the 19th century. People would take blood off thinking it would cure. I thought it was very poignant when I saw this slide that the Om comes right on George Washington's forehead. Swami is trying to tell us we have a problem with American leadership, so I'll leave it at that. And so King Charles of England had the same thing. And then in our own profession, lobotomies were a real disaster. They were 25, and it's very gender specific. People would go to a mental asylum and they'd do 25 lobotomies on women. Obviously, Thorazine and other drugs came in, but this is again a case of punditry that did not work. And I think we have to be very realistic about COVID. What were the dangers and what happened? William Osler said humanity has three great enemies: fever, famine, and war. And what they said was Apollo's arrows during the Iliad rained on the Greeks and they died in huge numbers. So COVID was like Apollo's arrows. And this is a very important statement from Francis Collins, who incidentally is a very spiritual man. He says, lockdown was something that we did. So you attach infinite value to saving one medical life. But what you do is you ruin the economy. Many kids, a whole generation of children educationally will never recover from that. And the question is, was this a mistake or not? And here punditry may have been an error, and we have to be honest enough to look at it that way. But not all punditry is bad. And if you look at the history of medicine, Ambrose Paré on the fields of war, people used to put burning oil on wounds, and he put rose water, and he found that it healed it. Same thing with Joseph Lister and carbolic acid. Florence Nightingale, people don't realize she was really the master of public health because when she was in the Crimean War, she's the first person to make pie charts and said this hospital in Scutari has a 40% mortality. It's a dirty hospital. That's why it's happening. Same thing with Marie Curie and Harvey Cushing, and then Barry Marshall, Heliobacterium. They laughed at him, and he said Heliobacter causes public ulcer. When I was in medical school in Punditry, one of the commonest procedures we did was vagotomies. Well, you don't do vagotomies anymore. So punditry works, sometimes it doesn't. And I think we have to look at our own skill set. So something I do is somebody with a large skull-based meningioma, took it out. I feel good about myself. I've done this well. But I think we need to stay humble. This is a girl that we operated on, 27 years old, big spinal cord tumor. I operated on it for 2 hours, took it out. She woke up paraplegic. She was not moving her legs. Anna Akhmatova was a Russian poetess who said when World War I began that in a single hour, we aged 100 years. All of us who have been in medicine, whether you're a nurse, you're a physician, we have had complications where we have stayed up all night saying, could we have done differently? Fortunately, this patient did well. After 3 days, I think I got all my gray hair worrying about her, and she started moving her legs, and actually she did well, and she had kids, and she was fine. But this punditry is not limited to this poignancy of complications, of things going bad. This is this report of the New York Times where they gave radiation for trigeminal neuralgia, very innocuous disease, and they gave 10 times the radiation they were supposed to give. So these people were brain dead in 6 months. Terrible tragedy, and there's real poignancy to that. I know we had a very distinguished orthopedic surgeon speaking here early. This is from arguably the best hospital in the world, Mass General Hospital, okay? They operated a 65-year-old. They operated on the wrong hand, okay? Believe it or not, this happened. And I tell everybody, people in the operating room, the nurses, there shouldn't be a power hierarchy. If you think something wrong is happening, you have to speak out because you may prevent a fatal mistake. And therein lies the balance between poignancy and punditry. I wrote a book on this and complications because I think our moral DNA as physicians is how we address mistakes, how we look back at root cause analysis, say, what could we have done differently? Do not accuse, berate, and criticize. Instead, say, how can we do this differently? How can we make a difference? Yeah. And I think this is John Keats' poem that he says, what struck me is a man of achievement when a man is capable of being in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. And I think uncertainty is important because between punditry and poignancy, you have to have a certain equanimity and question yourself as physicians. Could we do differently? What could we do? And whenever we have this ahankara, we're making a big difference, we're doing all this stuff. This is a great book. I recommend all of you read this. They looked in Jerusalem, there was a strike. For 4 months, the physicians are gone. Except for critical things, there were no physicians available. Now, you would think with something like that, your death rate's going to go up. Guess what? The death rate came down. So we think as physicians, we make a big difference, but I think humility is important in analyzing that. And I think the most important thing is equanimitas. We had the Prime Minister Narasimha Rao already on the screen here. This was his favorite saying, Ma bhaya ma samvikta, neither triumphant in victory nor daunted in defeat. And I think we as physicians need that because every day we will have something humiliating and we'll say, oh my God, how did this happen? Or we'll have our egos up because we get a great result, we're happy. So I think that balance is extremely important, yeah. This is one of the deans of the medical school at Cornell once said, everything that we teach you, half of it is wrong. The problem is we don't know which half. And I think that still applies to us sometimes. We're not certain. We can learn from that and that. And anytime we think oh, we made a big difference, and it's great to feel that way. But this is Steven Pinker's book when he talked about Karl Landsteiner. Karl Landsteiner saved 1 billion lives because of blood groups. He saved that. Same thing with chlorination of water, like 200 million people alive. I would add here, Bhagwan Baba has probably saved the whole universe, so he should be on top of that list. Yeah. And I think all of us here are so blessed because we have this genetic gift that Baba gave us of Satya Dharma Shanti Prema. It's in our chromosomes. Whether we don't live up to that gift is our fault. I always feel what got us here is Bhagwan's grace to us. What we do from here on by our conduct. There's a wonderful hymn in churches that they sing, they will know we are Christians by our love. They will know we are Sai Bhaktas, how we treat other people. That was Gandhiji's favorite bhajan. Vaishnava jana do chaine kaye jo peer paraye jane re. True faith is knowing how other people feel pain. And I think that's so important for all of us here. This was when the massacre in Connecticut happened, when 17 children were killed. And a Christian theologian by the name of Keenan wrote this line. He said, mercy is entering into the chaos of another. All of you in this audience, every day in your work, enter into the chaos of another. And all that motivates us is karuna, is compassion, empathy. And that's what makes the world go. But I think you also got to remember that faith is an important thing. This is a study that showed, they looked at nuns in Italy that were meditating and normal women that had family. The nuns had no high blood pressure. And one of the things they're saying, if you go to church, if you go to bhajans, it's as effective as taking Lipitor. So there's a study out on that. So I think Bhagwan's spiritual emphasis is a longevity predictor. And I think that's something that needs to be reinforced everywhere. Now, you can't say enough about the great mission that happens in the Temple of Healing. This is Dr. Hegde. This is Swami coming from, you can see the craniotomy there. And the number of cases are phenomenal. Now, I think there's no billing department here. And you would ask from a public health point of view, why is it important? And I take you back to the Titanic sinking. When you look at the sinking of the Titanic and how many people died, it was very interesting. If you're going first class, your mortality is 39%, second class 58%, third class 75%. And that's healthcare today. The poor have a much worse survival. There's a 12-year gap in New York City between the Upper East Side, which is a wealthy side, and if you go into the ghetto. So there's real discrepancies in healthcare prediction by wealth. And this is where Swami's mission is phenomenal because he's giving universal healthcare to all. I'll go quickly. This is a picture that I want to show you. And I have a question for the audience. This was a 90-year-old woman with an aneurysm, and I did not want to operate on you. How many of you would operate on your grandmother at 90 with an aneurysm? Raise your hand. That means none of you love your grandmother. I'm just kidding. But it's interesting. She insisted, we operated, she did well. She sent me a Christmas card for 6 years after that. Again, an instance of punditry that sometimes misfires. I didn't want to do anything, and I was wrong. So again, I think that balance is important. I love showing this picture. This is the Sistine Chapel, and they like to show God as the brain. Now, if it's the cardiologist, they're going to say the heart, the heart is there. Orthopedics going to tell you it's the femur out there. So everybody has their interpretation. And I think everyone has said that today. Hands that serve are holier than lips that pray. And I think that's very important for all. But this is an interesting comparison. I looked at the cost between two healthcare systems. Our system in the United States is high-tech, high-cost. Bhagwan's system is high-tech, zero cost. It's service dependent, and it's love for service. I think Swami says blood is liquid love, and I think we should resonate with that. This is from the operating room in St. Thomas Hospital in London. It says, for compassion, not gain. Mr. Antonia Norman-Saidi. And that's very important for healthcare because I placed it with an editorial by Berwick. Don Berwick is one of the gurus of healthcare in America, runs the IHI. He wrote an editorial in JAMA called Salve Lucrum. Salve Lucrum was found in Pompeii in the Roman remains, and what it means is for profit. So this is what the Romans said, Salve Lucrum, and Bhagwan Baba said, Salve Prema. His mission was motivated by love and care, and I think that's the mission we are privileged to care for. Yeah. This is just to show you in the United States, 70% of all people with medical debt owe more than $10,000. Because of those debts, they cut back on food, on basic samples. So we can learn from this healthcare system of how to help people. And I like this line, Swami said in 1980, the doctor is full of love and compassion, God works through him, and our endeavors becoming receptacles of divine power. I would sort of end with this, that, this was Albert Schweitzer's line, to cure some, relieve others, and comfort always. And again, I want to mention mercy is entering into the chaos of another. And this is Ambrose Paré, the father of surgery, who says, Je la pensée du lagari. I did the dressing and God did the healing. We, of course, believe Bhagwan did the healing. This is a great picture of the entire neurosurgical unit, a little biased, brain surgeons. So I want to put their team. They've done a great job, and they really need to be congratulated for the work they do. I will sort of end with compassion. You know, they asked Margaret Mead, when did civilization begin? And we may go to the avatars of Vishnu, we can say other things, but people say 15,000 years ago, they saw a healed femur. Somebody had a broken femur and survived. And now we speculate the reason is why somebody nursed him back to health. Otherwise, he would have died. And that's where compassion begins. And that's something it behooves all of us to do that. I want to end with this one slide. I operated on this young Hispanic girl, but he was quadriplegic, had a AVM in the spinal cord, and it was a high-risk case. And she wasn't moving. And I talked to her mother, who could only speak Spanish. And the only thing she said to me is, she says, just remember one thing. This is the most precious thing in the world for me. And it really resonated with me because I said, that's what's really important. That's why all of us are in healthcare. That's why we do what we do. And, you know, I was blessed, my Bhagwan Baba wrote a letter to my mother in which he said, be happy. I am with you, in you, around you, my dear. And I think that is a message he sends for all of us at all times. And we should never forget that. This is the line that Michelangelo is supposed to have said before he died at the age of 83. He said, Ancaro imparo, and still I learn. And I think Bhagwan Baba's message here in this educational meeting is to remind all of us that still we learn. Jai Sai Ram.
Thank you, Dr. Nanda, for a very